Good afternoon. I'd like to start by thanking you as our board for your continued support and leadership. We are very thankful for you serving our district in that capacity, and the decisions you all make significantly impact our students and staff, so thank you. I also want to thank our principals, our assistant principals, our district team, our teachers, for just their continued growth mindset. They are a great group of people to work with. They've embraced our district initiatives, just constantly willing to learn, grow, adjust. So I just want to publicly thank all of our leaders for everything that they do every day for students and staff in our district. So you all have had the report. I know there's a lot of data and a lot of information in it. I'm not going to go slide by slide. I'm really going to highlight and talk about some areas that we're very proud of, some data sets that are points of pride for us, identify some areas that we know we still need to make some progress with and data might not be where we want it to be yet, and also just talk about our systems and our structures and our strategies for how we maintain and improve just our continuous improvement cycle. I just want to start by saying that everything we do is very connected to our district goals, our mission, our core beliefs, and as you all know, we're very fortunate to have our CBAS approach, very forward-facing. So a lot of what you'll hear today is very similar to what we talk about in our signaling meetings with our action teams and our end of the year meeting that we just had last May with our report. So you'll hear a lot of similar updates to the work and data sets, because we are very fortunate to have a lot of data, and we have really grown to have our culture in terms of using that in real time. And a positive with all of this data that by and large, for the most part, there were not a lot of surprises for us with this data. Just, you know, everything that we do is very connected, and you will hear a lot of similar information that we've shared. So if I just start at the top and looking at our two district goals of 96.25 attendance and 100% transition ready. Obviously, we really look at that for our seniors who are exiting our stage, but we have a systemic process in place, as you all know, that we've defined. If we expect all of our seniors to be transition ready, what does that look like, you know, backwards for every grade level, so that it's a systemic process along that journey. But I'll start with our attendance first. Our district attendance percentage was 94.6, and to put some context around that, we were 7th in the state of Kentucky, and we were 3rd in our Northern Kentucky region. So we are 2.7 percentage points above the state average, and those 6 schools that are ahead of us in the state, they are not the other 10 large districts that we regularly look at, because we do know the larger your organization is, the more variables you have to you know, consider when you're making movement. So obviously we know the importance of that data set. We have to have students in our building to be able to help them reach their maximum learning potential. So we were very proud of that. It's obviously not at our goal yet, but it's growth, and we're very proud of that data. When we look at our goal of 100% of our students being transition ready, we have our CBAS transition percentage, which was for our graduating seniors of our cohort 23, 93.8. And then our state post-secondary overall indicator was 85.4. So again, not quite where we want it to be yet, but certainly very high, and a lot of growth in that area from just the inception of when we adopted our CBAS and identified transition ready in our district to even the state model. Another data point that I think is very important to start with is from our students. Our student climate and safety survey. When we look at the overall 10 largest districts in the state of Kentucky, our elementary data is first. Our middle school data is second, ranks second, and our high school data ranks first. So we know the importance of our students feeling comfortable, confident, and safe. That has to be a strong foundation before students are going to be able to really access standards in learning and reach their maximum learning potential. So that's a data set that we're very proud of, hearing directly from our students about how they feel about the adults in their life at school and what their experiences are like when they come to school every day. Looking at another big piece of data and putting in context is for the third consecutive year now, at every content area, reading, math, science, social studies, and writing, and at every tested level, at every elementary, middle, and high level, the Kenton County School District is above, and in some instances significantly above, the state percentages of students reaching proficient or distinguished in all areas except one, where we missed by 1 point. So that's the third consecutive year where we are either above or significantly above. And when I say significantly above, some of our percentage points are like 17 to 18 percentage points above the state average of students reaching proficiency and distinguished in that particular content area. So that's another certainly a point of pride for us as a district. As you all know, we just publicly recognized we have 12 of our 18 schools who are performing very high or high. And as Dr. Webb just shared, we reduced those schools classified as a targeted support improvement school from 8 to 3 within 1 year. So we're very proud of that. And I'm just going to share some other highlights, and I'm going to start with our EL population. As you all know, we have a very large EL population, and it is continuing to grow. And approximately 80% of our 570 EL students made growth on their English proficiency last year with the test that they take in January called the Access Test. And that is huge, because we know before they can really demonstrate learning around standards, they have to speak English and they have to read English. And so improving that English proficiency is huge for us. And we were also able to exit about 13% of those students last year district-wide from that assessment. So we know that we are building their foundation with understanding English first and foremost, while we're also still trying to teach them the standards. Our graduation rate is above the state average by 3.5 percentage points. And for our score, our overall indicator score was 95.6, and that was an increase of 2 points from just the year prior. So again, when you put data in context at the state level, we're above by 3.5 percentage points. When you look at the, again, top 10 largest districts in the state, we are second. Kenton County School District is second overall with graduation rate in that overall indicator. Our ACT data is higher in all areas than the state averages. So in every area, our ACT data is higher than the state. And, you know, we believe that there is a strong correlation, and our data shows that. It's not just a belief. Our data shows that there's a strong correlation between the formative data that we use regularly all year long and how strongly it correlates to the data through the Kentucky Summative Assessment. And what I mean by that is our district common assessments, there's a very strong correlation. For those schools that were just recognized as being high, very high and high, the correlation is very close. And even in areas where our proficiency level is not where we want it to be yet, there's still a strong correlation between how students are scoring on the KSA compared to when they take district common assessments throughout the school year. We know those are not apples to apples tests, but it serves as an assessment for us to use in real time to measure how our students are learning so that it can inform our instruction and adjust our instruction in real time. Obviously, there's so many points of pride. In the last slide we linked, because we have so many of our subpopulations, all students. Mary Beth's going to click on that. We created a points of pride sheet, if you will, and it just breaks down how we compare in so many different categories across the state. So I'm certainly not going to read all of that to you, but we just felt like putting this together as a one-pager was a nice snapshot for everybody to see that when you put data in context across our Commonwealth, that our school district really fares well and is very well represented. And we know that there's a lot of numbers and a lot of information, and behind all these numbers, we're talking about kids, and we're talking about how our students are achieving and demonstrating. So we never want that to get lost in all of this, that behind these numbers are our students. So clearly, that's just a highlight of some of the data that we have to be proud of. I don't have enough time to talk about all of the data that we are proud of. I'm going to segue at this time now to talk about some of the areas that we recognize as areas that we need to continue to grow. Certainly, we want to just continue to increase proficiency levels for all students in all areas, and especially placing emphasis in schools who are performing below high or very high. We also need to continue to improve our proficiency levels in our gap groups, so our students with disabilities, our English language learners, and just work to close those gaps. And we plan to sit before you next year and report that we do not have any schools who have the federal classification of targeted support and improvement. Something that we are really approaching in somewhat of a different new way this year is the need to increase our students' ability to proficiently read at grade level. We know that this is the foundation for everything. That's the gatekeeper to everything. Students who can read, that impacts everything. That impacts how they perform in all of our other content areas. And currently, as we sit here today, we have about 55% of our K through 5 students who have reached the 60th percentile on our universal screener, which projects proficiency. And we have 50% of our 6 through 8 students who have reached the 60th percentile, which again projects proficiency. So we have about half of our students, according to that data set and triangulated data, that are not reading proficiently yet. And that's an effort that we're approaching in many different ways. One of our areas, as you know, the board approved a 5-year comprehensive plan to implement resources. And I can share that for the first time ever, our staff, K to 12, thank you to our board, is implementing a comprehensive resource in the area of reading this year. And there's obviously a lot of growing with that, but I can tell you that our teachers are very fulfilled knowing that they have a resource and they don't have to spend as much time looking for materials of what to teach, the standards. They have that home base, if you will, and that in time we know will serve as one of the areas to better serve our students in the area of reading. Also, for the first time ever, we have a vertically aligned K to 12 curriculum map that not only highlights standards, we've always had that. This really identifies a progression of specific skills so that we're not overlapping, and that a skill that I might be getting in first grade, I'm not getting, again in isolation in second grade, that it's a progression and we don't have a gap and it's consistent district-wide. We're putting a lot of emphasis on training our teachers because, especially at the elementary level, we're not just using a new resource, but we're shifting how we teach reading. We're moving from a balanced approach to a more structured approach that is grounded in the science of reading. We have invested, again, through your support and leadership, in lead teachers. We call them our literacy leaders. And so that's an initiative that we're able to streamline training and professional support for our teachers and communication so that they then take that back to their colleagues and work with their principals so that this message and this training and this support is impacting all of our schools and all of our students. So those are just some of the ways that we are supporting the needs and the areas of growth that we know that we're tackling with that literacy piece. When we talk about our strategies and structures, all of our strategies and systems or structures are, again, heavily outlined in our action plan. That truly is our living, breathing document. And, before I go into more depth, I just want to say that in all of our meetings, we always start with the why. Why are we talking about this? Why is it important to learn this new strategy or this new resource? So we always stay grounded on why are we here? Why are we doing this? Why does this matter? Because it is sometimes easy to get lost in a lot of information or a lot of data, but staying focused on why, that our district has an outcome that we want our students to be at a certain level, what we call transition ready, when we leave Kenton County, and we know that we're impacting and changing lives by some of the things that we're doing. So that's just really something very important that we always try to stay focused on, that why. We also know, as I said, that behind all of these numbers, it's not about a test score. We know that these numbers represent kids. They represent our students, and they represent how our students are succeeding and demonstrating their success to us. So, you know, how do we take all of what I just said in a very large district and narrow and focus and simplify that? So we know what our goals are. We know that we have key questions from our action plan. And so from there, in a spirit to really narrow and focus, we have 2 district instructional priorities. And we talk about those regularly as well. And the first being that we have to have effective instruction at all tiers. And so if I can just focus first on Tier 1. Tier 1 is that standards-based instruction that they're getting in the academic side, and the SEL, social and emotional learning, that they're getting on the other side of our house. So making sure that there's equity, that there's consistency, that we're reaching the level of the standards. And then for those students who need instruction above and beyond Tier 1, in Tier 2, in Tier 3, or if they have a plan for as an EL student or a plan as a student with disability, that we are, you know, implementing those plans to fidelity, and that we were carrying out any programs to fidelity at those other tiers of instruction. After that, our second priority is that we have effective collaboration with building leadership and the teachers, and we call them professional learning communities, or you'll hear us call them PLCs. And that's where we take time to look at the data, where we're getting regular checks for learning, and we have very informed conversations of what does this data mean? You'll hear us ask that all the time. We have a lot of data. What does it mean, and what do we do with it as a result? So during those collaborative times with teachers, that's when we're using that data to either make informed decisions around instruction collectively, or we're naming and claiming and making decisions for individual students, whether that's reteaching through Tier 1 or an adjustment with a Tier 2 intervention or a plan. So those are really obviously our 2 main instructional priorities. And you can see through the plan that there are very specific action items that get at those 2 main priorities. But really, just to keep everything focused and keep the main thing, if you will, that's been very grounding for us. And you can see in the plan that we drill deeper and we get specific with, as it relates to those 2 instructional priorities. So, you know, in closing, we have a lot to be proud of. I'm very honored and excited to speak on behalf of our whole team. I can assure you that we never have that sense of resting on our laurels, or we've made it, we're here. We have evolved as a culture in our district of this is just how we do business, if you will. And I think some words that come to mind to describe our culture is collaborative, intentional. We are very data driven. I think we've established a very safe and trusting environment where it's okay to be vulnerable and say, I'm not here yet. We pride ourselves on being very responsible for ongoing Tier 1 systemic training, that we train our leaders and they take it back and train their staff, or we're training lead teachers and lead teachers are a part of training other teachers. So we pride ourselves on being very systemic with ongoing professional learning, collectively, but also in a very differentiated manner. We have regular meetings with folks in our office, with school teams at all 17 of our schools regularly, where we can really look at their data and have a conversation about where they are with the work to differentiate and offer that support there. We say we're about all kids, and you'll hear us say all the time, we know we cannot be about all kids unless we're about all staff. And our number one responsibility is to equip our leaders, to equip our teachers, to equip our students. And the data is not where we want it to be in all areas yet, but the systems and the strategies of our action plan will generate the desired outcomes for all students in time.